Hello, listeners, and welcome to another podcast by the Yates Cornell Cooperative Extension. I'm Lydia, the Natural Resource Educator, and I have my colleague here.
I'm Caroline. I am the Agriculture and Horticultural Development Specialist.
And we're here to talk to you today about native versus invasive plants in your garden. I will be talking about some invasive plants we've seen around the county, and Caroline will be providing you with some native alternatives. For this first episode, we have a flowering fruit tree. Iris calleriana, or the Callery Pear tree, was first brought to Maryland in the early 1900s as a rootstock for other pear trees, in an attempt to make them more resistant to fire blight. Originally from South China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, this tree is often chosen because it grows quickly in either full sun or partial shade and is tolerant of a variety of soil types, acidities, and types of drainage. You will especially see this tree growing along the city streets because of its resistance to pollution. However, this tree, also known by the name Bradford pear, which is its most common cultivar, is actually an invasive species that can cause harm to its non-native environment. Though not yet officially labeled as such in New York, many states in the Northeast have recently added it to their prohibited species list. Here's why. As I said, the tree grows quickly, which is great if you want to fill a space, but not so great for the surrounding plants. It fills gaps and crowds out or shades out native plants, reducing biodiversity and removing native food sources. The fruit it produces is very attractive to birds, who eat it and spread the seeds. Though this plant was originally bred to grow sterile seeds, unintentional crossbreeding has led to an increase in seed viability, especially in trees planted by birds or its small mammals. The Callery pear is also a popular host tree to the invasive European starling. More information on starlings can be found in Season 1, Episode 22 of our other podcast, Invasive Species Friday. So, Caroline, what can they plant instead of this invasive tree?
Well, one of my favorite alternatives to the Callery pear is an old standby that we see all over our area, Eastern Redbud, Cercis canadensis. Cercis canadensis is an amazingly beautiful tree in all 4 seasons. It also is very minimal in terms of its upkeep. It has no issues with common diseases such as fire blight. Deer hate it, and it's tolerant to growing in and around black walnuts. You have the beautiful flowers in the spring and absolutely stunning new leaves as they emerge, which then soften and fill in the landscape. There are multiple cultivars you can get if you don't like the old plain Jane, old species type. Some cultivars of note that are some of my personal favorites. If you want a tree that could cause traffic accidents, it's so bright, I recommend Flamethrower. Seriously, you will have people gawking at your house.
It is intense.
It is. You still get the pretty purple flowers in the spring emerging along the stems. But then, as the leaves emerge, they come out, they pop into golds and greens and, electric reds and oranges. It is an amazing tree to look at. Just Google images of Flamethrower Eastern Redbud and you will be amazed. If you don't quite want to cause traffic accidents in front of your house, I would recommend a cultivar called Carolina Sweetheart. I didn't just choose that one because of the name. The leaves, you still get the pink flowers. But then the leaves emerge as red and green when they're new, fringed with white variegation. And they hold that variegation throughout the summer. So you have these beautiful green leaves with a few new leaves and kind of pinks and reds and a white, which is truly stunning and blends well into a garden.
That sounds beautiful.
It is gorgeous. Other nice things with redbuds, some people consider this a downside, but they don't grow that fast. So you can really fit them into any space and have a long time for your landscape to adjust to them being there. They really need minimal pruning except to remove dead or damaged branches. Or if you don't like them where branches are very tolerant, you can always tweak it a little bit. They tolerate full sun or partial shade. They're a great early nectar source for our early emerging pollinators like bumblebees. So if you want to bring all the birds and bees to your yard, this is your option. In the fall, they have beautiful seed pods, which many birds and animals will also eat, so they can actually be a great bird feeder tree. They're particularly attractive to grosbeaks, quail, cardinals, and chickadees. So I think it's an all-around wonderful tree to have in a yard.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, even if you weren't going to plant a Callery.
Yeah. One thing to watch out, Eastern Redbuds are not particularly salt tolerant. So be conscious when you're planting that near a street edge. Mm-hmm. But if you want more suggestions, I have a list of other options that are prettier and hardier than Callery Pear. So.
All right, and before we leave you, Caroline has some suggestions for picking out and planting a new tree.
So when I'm picking out an ornamental tree, I'm putting a lot of energy into this. You're stuck with that form for a while. So I really recommend not ordering a tree like this online. I would go to a local nursery where you can really take a look at that tree and take some time picking out the tree with the best form. I also, because I'm nosy, I like to pull them out of the pots a little bit to get an idea of the roots. And you want to see a lot of living roots, which will look white. You don't want to see a lot of brown dead roots, especially ones that circle the pot, which can show they're root bound. Those trees can survive, but they're going to take a lot more care. Another tip I have, as our summers get hotter and drier, we want to be really cognizant of when we're planting. So you can plant in the spring, which works great as soon as the soil can be dug, but I wouldn't plant any later than the end of May for a tree. They really need to settle those roots in, and if you plant in June or July, you are going to be watering every day to keep that tree going, and they'll be under a lot of stress, and it will set them back.
You can't go on vacation if you plant a tree in July.
No, it's like getting a new puppy. And it will look just as sad if you don't take care of it. And then you also have a secondary planting window. As our falls have lengthened, you really can plant into October. So the other option is, if you want to have a little less maintenance, get your tree in the fall, starting in September, plant it. You're going to need to do a little watering, but those roots will set out throughout the winter until the soil freezes. So in the spring, that tree is ready to go for the next year.
And with that, we've reached the end of this podcast. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Native versus Invasive. We hope that you join us next time, where we will look at a different invasive and a great garden-friendly native alternative.